And we are live on the 33rd episode of a podcast. We're going so specific on that we can't mess up the order now. With your host, Stephen Maxted. And today we have um, a super interesting guest, Mikey Henninger, and he is the founder of Basement. I'm referencing Brew, Fantasy Football.
Yeah.
Lot to unpack here. And Mikey, thanks for joining me here. We go back. We just discovered this today. It was a LinkedIn connection, and we were kind of discussing who reached out to who first. And I think it was a mutual back and forth. And
Yeah.
we got talking about the podcast, and here we are.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is precisely how I prefer to spend Monday mornings. It's a nice break from my usual like spreadsheets and writing and all the other stuff I'm digging into all week. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mikey, I'm based out of Winnipeg here, and we're starting to expand this thing. We do have a lot of focus in Manitoba, but in terms of your business kind of doesn't have any borders, I'll call it. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about the NFL, and so I think it's great that we're able to get you on here and
Yeah.
talk about that. But where are you from? How'd you get started on this thing? Why don't we start with that, and then we'll flow from there.
See, it's funny that you say that, man. So I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the States.
Yep.
Which, by the way, most people that are in the States, when they talk about Wisconsin, they say, so you're basically Canada, right? So they like, we're basically like your little brother, according
Yeah,
to the rest of the United States. But
that's
yeah,
so
man.
funny.
So born and raised Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What was your other question? I totally forgot. Just where I'm from and
How'd you get started? Yeah, know
get
where you're
started with
from.
my
How'd you get
business.
started? Yeah, yeah.
Oh man. Well, this is gonna take the rest of the episode. So, um, yeah, man. My story is I'm told it's unique, and the more I reflect on it, it's definitely, there's people that tell me you should write a book, you should write a book, because my story, it's
Do
just
it.
weird, man. It's a weird story because I don't know how far back you want me to go with this stuff, but there's a couple sides of it. What the first side is that I have been obsessed with the NFL literally since I can remember. Like I remember like the first Super Bowl that I can remember was the Cowboys Steelers back in 1996. I, as a child, like a 7-year-old child, I used to entertain myself by taking two, like, I don't know if you ever saw or had the NFL pencils. They were literally just like pencils, but there were 32 of them. It had like, this was the Green Bay Packers, this was the Jacksonville Jaguars, Indianapolis Colts. It had every single team, right? And I would lay out all 32 pencils, just grab two at random, could be the Bears and the Patriots.
Yep.
I would close my eyes and twirl them in my hands and then drop one. Whichever team I dropped was the losing team. Whichever team I was holding was the winning team. And I would go into my notebook and write down who won, who lost, and grab the next two teams. And I would do 17-week seasons of
Yeah.
this. And I just had notebooks full of, we called it the pencil game. My mom tried to get me on the news for like inventing this game. It's like, I don't know if I invented anything. I just played with pencils. But anyway, so like,
Oh, that's awesome.
dude, so I'm 7 years old, just obsessed with the NFL and just creating NFL stuff however I can.
Yep.
That led to me playing Madden, the video game. I don't know if you've ever
Yep.
how familiar on my Super Nintendo. I would
Awesome.
play a game. We'll just say it's like Packers Vikings. I would play the
Yep.
game, and then I would go over to not even a computer. It was my grandpa's typewriter at the time, and I would write a quote unquote news article about what happened in that game. With
Yep.
here's the stats, here's what happened, here's who they play next week.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
then we got to a point where I would be playing Madden, and I would be keeping stats and building teams in my notebooks. And eventually I get to a point where I'm 18 years old and I get introduced to fantasy football, and my obsession is just launched to a whole brand new level, dude. I'm like thinking about fantasy football. I'm sleeping, eating, drinking, sleeping, and I'm just
Yeah.
obsessed with the game, right? Like so obsessed that the best man at my wedding spent like 70% of it talking about how of his speech talking about how my wife puts up with me playing fantasy football. So anyway, so know that obsession exists in the background, right?
Awesome.
Meanwhile, I get out of college and I am my first job out of college was writing, which was great. I always wanted to be a writer. But I always wanted to be a sports writer. What I was writing at the time was finance stuff, like 401ks, 403bs,
Right.
like retirement plans, insurance, the dullest, most boring stuff. It was like 7 months, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm done with this. I reluctantly accepted a role with the same company, but on the sales side. I went into sales. My sister was in sales. She was like, you'll make a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. So I just did it because I didn't know what else to do.
Totally.
So then if you just fast forward it, I spent the next decade of my life in B2B sales, kind of climbing corporate ladders, if you will, right? I went from a BDR to an account executive to a team lead to the national accounts team into management. Cool. And then eventually I got to a point where I went over to a completely different company in Milwaukee where I was the director of sales, and I was focused on like not just selling, but also building the team, hiring and firing. I was on the executive team focused on like business planning and all this big picture stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm doing that for about a decade, and eventually, so as I'm doing that, as I'm like climbing that corporate ladder, if you will, meanwhile, I'm still obsessed with football, and I'm still obsessed with fantasy football, and I've been creating my own resources to help me play. I wasn't creating them for anybody else. And there's one tool in particular for anybody who's ever played fantasy football. They're familiar with that start sit conundrum every week. So if you're playing fantasy football, you're going to be faced with this, like, do I start this guy or do I use this guy? And you just like, you second guess it. You don't know who to use. And I was creating this tool for years that just kind of helped me make those decisions. And one of my friends found that, and he's like, dude, this thing is insane. You have to put this on Reddit or put it out into the world. And I almost didn't do it. I almost didn't do it because A, I wasn't really making it for anybody else, but B, I was terrified of Reddit because I don't know if you've ever been on Reddit, Steven, but like people there are very angry and they're very mean.
Yep. For that reason, I don't spend a lot of time on there. When I have been on there, I'm like, whoa, there is a lot of energy on here that yeah.
And I have a very sensitive, no, I'm just kidding. But, well, I don't know if I'm kidding. I probably am pretty sensitive. But anyway, so I reluctantly did it. I put it on Reddit, and it blew up in the best way. Like,
awesome.
Tons of upvotes, if you will, tons of really positive feedback. And eventually I got to a spot where there's literally people, I have no expectations with this thing. And there's literally people sending me DMs in Reddit. Hey man, what's your Venmo? I want to donate because I want you to keep doing this. By the way, this resource that I created, it takes me over 30 hours per week to make. And people are like, what's your Venmo? I want to donate so that you keep doing it. We want to keep using it. So that's making a light bulb go off in my head where I'm like, okay, there's complete strangers in the world. These aren't friends. These are complete strangers I've never met that are wanting to give me money that I wasn't even asking for. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I might have something here. There's a social proof that tells me there's something here. All the while, I'm in my B2B sales role, but I'm not like happy. I'm not jumping out of bed, right? I'm checking the boxes. I'm going through the work, going through the motions, you know, doing the work, collecting the check, paying the bills, waking up, doing it again. There's nothing about it that's making me jump out of bed. And eventually, March of 2022, those intersections just kind of crossed where I had kind of had enough of the corporate world.
Yeah.
While the fantasy football thing is kind of blowing up on the side almost accidentally. And there was a moment.
I love that.
There's a moment where I'm at the water park with my son in March of 2022. And he's only at the time, he's only 6 years old. We climb all the way up for this water slide, which by the way, he's kind of a chicken. He's like scared of stuff. We get all the way up there and he takes one look inside the water slide and he goes, I'm not doing it. It's way too dark. And I'm like, come on, man. We just walked all the way up these stairs. You got to do it. And I grabbed him by the shoulders and I said, buddy, sometimes the most important thing you can do in your entire life is the thing that you're most scared of in that moment. And like, he didn't listen to me. He didn't take my advice. We walked all the way down the stairs, but a light bulb went off and I took my advice. I recognized in that moment, I'm going for it. And I decided in that moment, I put in my 2 weeks notice the following day on Monday. And I told my wife, like, I got her approval, of course, because it would have been so easy for her to be like, you can't quit your freaking job. We have a mortgage. We have 2 kids. But, you know, she said the opposite. She said, you got to go for it. You got to, you know, we can fix the money if that becomes a problem. What we can't fix is you getting 20 years down the road regretting your life because you didn't take the shot when you had it. So
Totally.
next day, man, I put in the 2 weeks notice and I dove all in on the fantasy football dream. So fast forward to today, it's, we're 17 months, 18 months into the journey, and it's, basement brewed fantasy football. It's fantasy football analytics and resources and community for anybody that, wants to beat the shit out of their friends playing fantasy football. So
I already know we're going to have some people following up with you from,
I
we'll
hope
call
so,
it 100%. There's some people, like we talked before, I know just enough about this to be dangerous. It's not my main go-to, but I love
yeah.
hearing stories like this and on, the business side of it.
Yeah. And I hope that wasn't too long-winded, but it's a long story with multiple layers to it. So anyway.
Unreal. What was I know you had the discussion before, and hopefully, like that was a healthy leave or like exit conversation there. What was the feeling like the day after, or like, the 2 weeks? I don't know if it was a right away thing that happened once you gave the notice, but were you kind of like
the adrenaline dies off?
Yeah. What was that like for you?
So I think there's kind of two sides of this. From a financial standpoint, that part felt fine for like a month or two because I was in a sales role. I got most of my commission paid. I got a big lump sum to like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But however, it's like there was a lot of learning how to fight a fire while in the middle of the fire, because
Totally.
It's the sort of thing where it's like, I'm great at the fantasy football side. I don't know a dang thing about building websites. I don't know anything about business taxes. I don't know anything. Like, I know enough to be dangerous about marketing because one of those sales roles was at a marketing company.
Right.
There was a lot about owning and operating a business that I had no clue about, like the legal thing, right? I had to contact a lawyer to get T's and C's for my website because fantasy football kind of plays in that space where it's not quite gambling, but it's like, and you also don't want to get into this, like this thing with your subscribers where you never know if you have some angry person that's like, I trusted you by starting this player and I ended up losing, and you don't want to get sued for something weird. So anyway, just all this stuff that is not fantasy football is stuff that I had to tackle first, and there's no getting around it. It's stressful as heck. But at the same time, there's something that's just like liberating and freeing, knowing that like at the end of the day, if this thing succeeds or fails, that's on me. Like this is my baby. This is 100%. What I do. You know what I mean? It's all, I make my schedule. I make my mistakes. I make, I have my own wins. It's all on me. And there's something that's really like fulfilling about that. You know what I mean? It makes you feel like the work that you're doing actually means something.
Yeah, and a little scary though too. I don't even know if there's a technical term, but as you're talking there, I was like thinking about this for myself too, and I know what that feeling's like from a couple different reasons in the workforce. One was from the side of getting bought out through a merger years ago.
Sure.
And it was crushing because I was younger, and it was like I thought I was going to be with this company forever, and it ended up being the best thing that happened. But I panicked. Yep. I went to work like immediately right after, and I should have went traveling.
Sure.
And then that happened again in, like, I used to work in the agriculture space. And it happened again a few years later. There are a lot of mergers, things happening. That time I did go traveling. Right after I was like, okay, all right, we need a break, and bumped into a lot of people in Costa Rica that were in the exact same position. And then the next time that parted ways with the work, it was on my own. I just said, hey, I gotta go take a risk. Roll the dice on this thing. That thing actually didn't work out, but it led me to do other stuff. And I know the feeling that you're talking about there. I'm glad you mentioned too, though. I was thinking more one way, but the financial stress of doing that, because you're right. The first month is like, okay, cool, bills are paid, whatever. I have mortgage too, and then all of a sudden it's like, huh, there's no, like whatever, however many, whatever your salary is, let's call it, like, $3,000 hitting the bank on the safe side of an average, whatever. Coming in, the 2 weeks or whatever it is, and it's like, that's dipping into his savings. You're like, how can I play catch up? And if you're, you're making a little bit as you're making progress through the company, but it's certainly not hitting, where you need, or where my hands are on the screen here, and as you get the time going, not that it's all about the money at the end of the day, like you and your wife were talking about there, right? It's
but
more about the regret. You still need it to be important though, right? It's important to be able to make that money.
Yeah. And that's 100%, man. And it's funny too, because my timing wasn't really super smart. I quit my job in March and the NFL doesn't start till September. So most people aren't even thinking about, they're not even thinking about fantasy football until August, let alone purchasing what is this? A fantasy football subscription? What does that even do? So it's like,
Yeah.
it took a while to get going. And look, man, I'm 18 months in. My income is nowhere near where it needs to be in terms of, keeping the house and keeping food on the table. But like, if you look at the signs and you look at the context, it's all headed in the right direction. And I forget the stat, but most business owners and entrepreneurs, it takes a couple of years before they get rolling anyway. But it's funny. It's funny you bring up the money side too, right? Because there's a lot of people that are, don't get me wrong, man, they're super kind and super nice and they're well-meaning and well-intentioned, but they say things to me like, you're going to be on ESPN and you're going to be a millionaire. And it's like, that's not even what I'm going for. Like, the money's important. We got to be able to keep our house. Like, my kids have to eat food, but I'm not like doing this to get rich. I'm doing it because I just want to I get one life, man. Like, I want to spend my life doing the thing that I'm obsessed with anyway. And if I can show my kids, they're 7 and 4 years old, if I can show them that, like,
totally,
you're growing up, everybody says you can do anything you want to do. And at some point you hit an age, whether it's like teenager or whatever, but you hit an age where you're like, yeah, that's fine. Like, no, you can't. I have to follow this linear path of going to high school, going to college, getting a job, and like selling insurance or whatever it is. I want my kids to see from their dad, like, no, you can do anything that you want to do if you commit to it and you dedicate yourself to it and you really do what it takes to get there. It won't be easy, but it's doable,
Oh, man,
and that's
awesome.
Yeah, man. I think there's just a lot of layers to it. It's not a financial thing. That's a box we need to check, but that's not why we're doing it,
Yeah. Do you have a mantra or like a North Star thing that you have out there that you kind of live by?
I have a couple, and one of which is kind of morbid. But let me put it this way. There's 2 Post-it notes that I have on my mirror. In my bathroom mirror, wake up in the morning, blah, blah, blah. It says, your kids are watching you. And it says, be the person that you want them to be. So it goes bigger than business, right? I want them to handle controversy in the appropriate way. The other thing that I frequently think about, that I said is a little bit morbid, but it's motivating as hell to me, is I ask myself frequently, what would my kids and my wife, what would they say about me at my funeral? If they had to, like, what would they say about me? Whether that's a business thing, a dad thing,
personal thing,
like, all that stuff. Like, that is, I would say, if I'm thinking like mantra or North Star,
100%.
That is something I think about frequently that kind of helps guide the decisions that I make on a daily basis, right? Like, did I choose the carrots or did I choose the cake? Did I drink water in the morning? Did I sit on the couch and watch Netflix? Or did I, go for a walk or take my kids to the park? All that stuff. And I'm definitely not always perfect. There's times I choose the cake and I choose the couch, but it's something that I keep in the back of my mind all the time, because I want to make sure that I'm more often than not making the right, quote unquote, right decisions. I don't know if that answers your question, but those are the
100%,
things.
man. No, for sure. Yeah, there's no right or wrong. Just whether you were talking though, you kind of pick up a vibe that's probably something that you have written down. I made one a few years ago. I'm gonna swap sharing back. It's somewhat similar in some ways, but a little bit like simpler, and it's not as specific. But it's, what would 80-year-old you think? Like 80-year-old you think?
Yes.
Because it was like
I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's good. I actually printed it on like a banner. I have it in the gym downstairs in my house every morning from down there. I get to look at it and be like, okay. Also, there's a mirror right nearby. So similar to the Post-it side of things, you kind of almost have to like face yourself and be like, okay, what's that all about in terms of like decision making? Because there's things that will happen along the road, and whether it be like business stuff is part of it for sure, but then also what kind of weight do you carry around? I start to think, I kind of incorporated that recently in that thought process, like stuff that happens is really that big of a deal, or like, does it matter? There's whatever 7 billion of us, little things that happen. So,
and in every, like, just getting through every day of life, it's like, it's so easy to just fall into, like, I don't want to say lazy habits, but like bad habits, and it's easy to
No,
convince ourselves, it's just one day, but it's never just one day. It's like you're gonna make the same
totally.
decision on the same, so I do think about that frequently, Stephen, of the like, what can I do today that'll like 50-year-old me is gonna thank me for, right?
Totally.
And part of that is like some health, I won't even say struggles, because it pales in comparison to what some other people deal with, but
Yeah.
like January I went to my doctor, which, no coincidence, that's right when the NFL season's wrapping up, where it's like I've been stressed out for the last 6 months. But I go to my doctor and she's like, listen, your cholesterol isn't like outrageous, but it's way higher than it should be for being a 35-year-old.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that gets in my head where I'm like, I'm not doing 50-year-old me any favors by eating McDonald's, and like I'm not trying to have a fitness conversation. I'm the furthest.
No. Hey,
But
Mikey. No, this is sweet, man. There's always room to bring that in, because everywhere, like if you took care of, what is that expression, right? Like your health is your wealth at the end of the day. If you
totally.
ask someone if they trade money for youthfulness,
Yeah.
I've heard that said, and I probably say the same thing. If I go back to being like 19
100%.
and shredded with a metabolism back then, that was sweet. You could eat whatever and you could run and whatever, like for miles, not
Dude,
feel a thing.
My wife was with me at one of those doctor appointments, and my doctor, she reiterated, she's like, look, you're not in like any sort of danger zone, but if you keep going down this path, you will
You're
be
headed
in
that
that
way.
danger zone. And then my wife said something along the lines of like, I realize that your business is important and you're super passionate about it, but if you're not around, then that business is going nowhere. And I'm like, wow, why you got to hit me with the like, the scary bits, the thought of not being here. And it's like, but anyway, yeah, man, I don't know how we got over to fitness, because like I said, I am.
That's it. Oh, we're talking health stuff, and how are we at? What have you, or if I can inquire, have you done any like steps specific to that? Like, I'm not a doctor either here. Put that out there for the Mecca, but like, have you done anything that way for
First and foremost, I started working with a coach. His name's Jordan Poggle. He's become one of my very best friends on the planet. If anybody's on LinkedIn, you don't have to work with him, but follow him, because he's going to give you life-changing like tips every single day. But there's
cool.
The big thing with Jordan is, and this is huge for me, not making gigantic sweeping changes. Like you don't say, okay, day one, now I'm all of a sudden doing this diet and I'm doing this exercise. And it's like, no, that's not realistic with life. Like what's one thing that we can do today that is better than yesterday? To me, over time, there's a couple things. Number one, the very first thing I do in the morning is the night before, I filled up my 32-ounce bottle of water and I left it on the counter so that it's room temperature. So much easier to chug. So like literally the first thing I do in the morning, I get up, I go grab that 32-ounce and I drink the whole dang thing. Now all of a sudden I've drinking 32 ounces of water before the day's even begun. And I've always been bad with water, right? I want my coffee, and like I'll drink soda and beer and all that stuff. But now I'm like, I have 32 ounces of water in my system before the day even begins, and it kind of sets the tone. Totally. Jordan's all about spending as quickly as you can, getting 10 minutes of sunlight into your eyes. Not like looking into the sun, that's dangerous, but being outside, getting natural sunlight in your eyes. And then, from there, a lot of times it's like, it's not dieting, but it's just making conscious decisions of where you put your food. Like, don't have a bowl of candy on the counter, because it's just natural to grab it when it's sitting right there, or chips. Like, make the stuff that's not good, keep it just out of reach. My wife and I have actually started on the weekends. We've started like cutting up vegetables and then just leaving it out. And it's insane how frequently you walk past and you grab a carrot. You know what I mean? And it's like, I probably won't go to the fridge and grab a bag of carrots, but if it's just sitting right there,
all ready to go.
You know what I mean? The last thing I'll say there is can I drop an F-bomb on this one? He has a mantra when it comes to like eating, and this lives in my head and it's so great. He says, you don't have to give up food. Like, you can eat whatever you want, buffalo wings, cake, whatever. But his thing is, if it's not a fuck yes,
it's a fuck no.
It's a fuck no. You know what I mean?
I love that saying.
If it's cake and you're like, yeah, that sounds kind of good, I'll eat some. no, that's not good enough. It has to be like, I need that cake. And if you
Right.
do, eat it. Don't deprive yourself of it.
Of
But
doing
like,
that thing. Yeah, but it's got to be like a instinct, like you're needing this
totally.
thing.
You're
Yeah.
not just eating it because it's sitting there. You're eating it because you're literally like foaming at the mouth. You know what I mean? So that's his big thing. And that simple mantra has changed how I approach food.
It's
Like
not like
big time.
a
Like just yesterday, watching the Packer game, my couple friends came over, made this huge pot of queso dip, which with my cholesterol stuff, I shouldn't be eating that much cheese, which is really hard in Wisconsin, by the way. But there's there's milk and there's meat
right.
in here. It's like everything I probably shouldn't have. But I said, nope, I absolutely need this. It's an F yes, and I had it, and that's fine. That's that's okay. Like we're human. We're
Yeah,
going to what's the point of like getting to 80 if we've deprived ourselves of the things we like?
100,
You know. So anyway.
totally. It's definitely about that balance. No, I love that you brought this up. So this coach, maybe more specific here, is it like a business coach or more like a
He's a fitness
lifestyle
coach.
fitness coach? Okay,
He's
yeah,
a
yeah.
fitness coach. Yeah, he's a
Right,
fitness
cool.
coach. He is. I've worked with other fitness coaches in the past. He's by
Yeah,
far the best at what he does. Because the other thing too, by the way, he crafted some. I was just honest with him, like, dude, I'm never gonna go to the gym. I can buy a membership. I'm not gonna actually go to the gym. It's just not gonna happen. And he was like, all right, cool. What do you have at your house? And he created multiple exercises for me to do just using stuff in my house that doesn't take any more than 20 minutes. So
nice.
he is awesome at like, tell me your lifestyle and I will
Create
put together a
custom plan.
plan for you that doesn't flip your whole world upside down, just helps you
Yeah,
make incremental changes every day that will like over the course of time improve your life dramatically. And he's the best at it. And he's just an overall good dude. He's literally become one of my best friends on the planet, in the world. So
that
I
is
recommend him to
awesome.
anybody, even if you don't work with him, follow him because he will change your life, and that's a guarantee. I promise it.
What was the name again? And we'll just make sure
Jordan
listener.
Pagel. He says his last name wrong because it's Pagel, so it literally matches the word bagel, but with a P.
Hmm.
And he says Pagel. I'm like, dude, you're all wrong. It's
Pagel.
Pagel. But anyway, yeah, it's
Awesome.
it's Jorden
Jordan.
Pagel.
Awesome. Plug for that. That sounds awesome. Have you ever or I don't know if this even came up in conversations, but it's something that I do and I did this morning. I did two things instead of like a workout right away to kick off the day. I just was busy this weekend at some stuff. But did like a little quick ice plunge, and then I did a sauna for longer to kick off the day. Have you got an sauna stuff side of it anyways, and not to push the ice side of it, but have you explored that at all?
Sauna. So I've never done anything conscious. Like I've been inside of a sauna before, but I've never
Yeah.
like gone into a sauna to do something. The ice plunge thing, I don't know what my deal is. I have such a accidental like negative reaction to the idea of it.
Yeah.
Because one, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna put myself into ice pool. I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm such a baby with like
Yeah.
temperature. But B, it keeps feeling like, I don't know, you keep seeing the growth and it feels kind of like culty.
Oh, okay.
With the
I
people
got it because I'm like, this is silly. I just have to do it now because I want to try it. I want to
and
know.
do you love it?
See, like I just started doing it again. Like I did it when I first got this thing for
Sure.
like a 20-day, pretty, religious
Yeah.
schedule every day. And then I just stopped for a bit. I was like busy. And frankly,
Yep.
it got
Yep.
too hot in the summer and it sits outside and it's like a basic model. It's like $120. So it's not like insulated. It's not constantly kept that way. So I found it to be a little bit of work. There's other ones you could get, or you could, I've seen people convert old freezers and they like sit in them and stuff.
100%.
And I think it's hilarious. But then I just got into it again because it's kind of getting cooler now. It's not quite frozen, but it stays at like a cold temperature where
Yeah.
I don't have to add ice and do this other stuff for the version that I have. So I like it in the sense of like when you do get in there, you're focused. I mean, for me, it's like I'm always
It's your
on the
breathing,
phone
right?
doing
That's
the
the big thing
breathing
with it.
pace thing for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I don't know about all the other list of benefit stuff, but I would say it. I mean, I do feel better,
I mean,
definitely more
the
alive.
people that do it definitely like swear by it. So I need to get out of my own head about like
Yeah.
whatever weird preconceived notions I'm putting into it. I need to get out of my own head and try it. And shoot, dude, I play like basketball 2 nights a week and volleyball, like my knees could certainly benefit from sitting in an ice bath for a little while. So that's
Yeah,
I think there's 2 different areas of this that I could get into. So maybe
sure.
I'll open the door to the possibility of it pretty
Well,
soon.
and that's like one side of it. There's also like the similar companies out there have saunas. I happen to during the time of we'll call it the extended flu. Try not to use the word on here so I don't get filtered for anything. But when that started, I had this plan to make a sauna for a really long time. Like I had
Oh wow.
wanted to build one, so I just got busy and built a sauna in the backyard. And part of the reason they did that though is
Okay.
they did this silly like ancestry. We're really off top from where we're at, but I did this ancestry. I did this ancestry thing, and we knew most of where our family was from, but it showed a bunch of Nordic stuff in there that we weren't as familiar with. So it was like Swedish, Norway, Finnish, kind of heading over that way. We knew Eastern European, but I guess at some point, whatever, genetics were spread
Sure.
amongst basically a good chunk of Europe. Um, so I was like, oh, what do those people do? We're kind of in a similar climate. Like it's cold. I should figure out stuff that they do that we, whatever. I should
Yeah.
reference that more. And they have like a lot of people over there use saunas. So that's how I got started on it. And then built this thing, had kind of like drawn up the scale, ordered the oven, set up the electrical for it, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of listed stuff there health wise for both like the brain and even like your
Totally.
cardiovascular side that I found interesting. Helps me sleep a lot better at night. Like I'll do it before bed. In this case, I did before the morning, just kind of zen out,
Yeah.
calm before the day. Maybe this is even recommended from the fitness side there to take like a minute before you open your phone and check the email and stuff. Because if you're
Yeah.
doing water in the sunlight thing, I'm sure that came into
Yep.
the
Totally agree with you.
mindfulness part, right? Because
Yep.
if you
100%.
start off with chaos, it's just gonna like
Yeah,
if you
you
don't
do, man.
separate that, you know, that
Especially running a business, you dive right into it almost
yeah,
immediately, right? You get your kids on the bus, and even that's a whole different layer of chaos. But man,
yeah,
I don't doubt what you're saying is true, because I talk to Jordan all the time about how, like, when I exercise, and again, I'm not a fitness guy, I'm not out here like touting exercise. Everybody knows they should exercise.
yeah,
I have to like work myself up to get to do it. I don't
we
really
do it.
like exercise, but when I finally do it, the mental benefit is almost even better than the physical benefit. Like my
I would,
brain, like the clarity is unbelievable. Like I call it
yep.
endorphins or whatever it is, but yeah, man, I don't doubt what you're saying is true. There's a big mental thing there.
I think that's like the bigger part of it. We don't think of ours like
Yep.
as we can kind of think we're fancy animals. That's what I call it. When we can think about ourselves outside of ourselves and like this bigger picture thing, like where you're talking about there about
Yeah.
like the even the job perspective and being in that loop. If you can think outside of that and start to reflect, back in, you just got to take regular maintenance. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
self-driving car, but you got to do the maintenance on your own body in that way, right? And at least
Yep.
some form of health. Like I heard this thing too. It was on a podcast a little while ago, and it was just talking about like the health of like doing workouts, even if you eat like have a terrible diet, basically like you're out of shape, maybe you're a little bit, headed towards
Yep.
like the obese category, and that you're
Yep.
still going to be healthier if you spend time working on yourself, whether it be whatever. But
Agreed. Yep.
anyways, bit of a tangent here. But if we go back to football for a second, okay,
Sorry,
let's
man.
go back to
I have
that.
a habit of, yeah.
No, this was great. This is so fun to do that. But I was just like taking some notes here. I'm just like, oh, this is awesome that you talked about how you started and where like things are like growing to now. I know like on the website here we have YouTube and like subscription stuff. Like, what does that look like for folks that use what call it like user services, subscribe to? What's the business kind of look like from both ends, from yours and for theirs? What could they expect
So if somebody
by
was like
subscribing?
so if somebody subscribed,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, this took years of like molding, but I've come to find that there's 3 main areas or things or services, let's say, that people use of mine to, and this has turned into my marketing, to dominate their friends, right? Because most people that are in
yeah,
fantasy football, they are playing against their buddies. And it's funny, I actually put a thing out on Twitter not too long ago that was like, what's the best part of winning fantasy football? It was a poll. Money, because most people put money on. It's just, I mean,
yeah.
some people play free and that's cool, but most people put money out there. Money, trophies. I don't know if you've seen some of these fantasy football trophies. They're gaudy as
No,
heck these days, and people love them. Like there's belts, there's like trophies that like they're just huge. But anyway, what's the best part of winning fantasy football? Money, trophies, bragging rights over your friends, and it was like 79% bragging rights.
Bragging rights.
Like, that's what people want, right? People play because they want to beat their friends.
Totally.
So anyway, my marketing these days has been like, this is how my subscribers are destroying their friends. And they are. Like, I'm every week on LinkedIn, I'm posting new testimonials of like,
oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? So anyway,
yeah.
There's three main ones. Number one is the draft season, right? Anybody who's played fantasy football, the whole thing begins with your fantasy football draft, right?
Yeah.
So you get together with all your buddies, you sit down, you pick your teams. I have a resource. I won't spend too much time on this because we're already in the season. Like, people, this won't help anybody right now. But next year, if anybody's interested, what it does, like, it's draft ranking. So I'll rank 250 plus players top to bottom. So you have a good cheat sheet of like, okay, here's who I should be targeting. But B, every player in that list has at least 250, 300 plus words analyzing what to expect from that player in 2023 or 24 or 25, whatever year it's going to be. So you're going to always know who to draft, when to draft, and why to draft that player. That's number one. Number two is I have a, I don't know if anybody listening is familiar with Discord, which is a lot like Slack or Voxer or like think of any like group chat, not even group chat. It's bigger, but like a big room almost. It's almost like a networking room, but digital. It's online. But I have a Basement Brewed Fantasy Football Discord channel. I have over 300 plus subscribers. 255 of them are in this Discord channel. So literally, you have 255 and counting other fantasy football brains, including mine, that are in here helping each other every single day. Like, should I use this person or this person? Should I do this trade? Should I drop this player? Should I drop this player? And we're all helping each other every single week.
Right. Everyone's conversing about it ultimately.
Everybody, right? And so we're all helping each other. And the other cool thing about this, Steven, too, dude, like, this was not even the intent, but it totally has just happened this way. People are coming for the fantasy football advice, but then they're like staying for the friendships, right? Like,
totally.
You get to know the people that are in there. You build relationships, you make jokes, you have fun together. Like, we just found out one of our subscribers is having a daughter in a couple months, and the whole, like, everybody celebrated and congratulated this person. And we have one guy who lives in Wisconsin. He's going to, I think it was Denver, for a Packers Broncos game in a couple months.
Yeah.
One of our other subscribers lives in Denver, has Denver Broncos season tickets, and they're going to go to the game together. They've never met each other. They only know each other through the Discord channel.
Oh my gosh.
And they're going to like get beers and like they're going to make a whole day out of it, right? So like I got goosebumps right now thinking about this stuff because it's so cool how, I don't know about you, man. Like, to me, it's like the older I get, the harder it is to make genuine like friendships. You know what I mean? Like, you know, a lot of people, but and maybe this is just my experience, but like a lot of my childhood friendships have just died off. Like, a lot of the kids I was friends with, I'm not friends with anymore because we grew in different directions, and that's totally okay. But then the older I get, it's kind of like it's my family, and we have a couple really close friends, but that's pretty much it. Like, everybody else is kind of more of an acquaintance or somebody that I know. In here, you have like people that are forming genuine, real, like, life-changing friendships, which is so, like, that's not even what they came for. They came for fantasy football talk, you know? It's just, I don't know, it's cool. But anyway.
No, that's awesome. I love that too. Well, it's a very big thing, like as you illustrated earlier. It's something that you are very passionate about from day one of your life almost.
Well,
with the pencil side of things, right?
Because it's like, if you go to just some local get-together, that's great, but there's not necessarily a great chance you're going to have a lot in common with the people there. When you're coming into this Discord channel, you already know there's 250 other people that love fantasy football, and that's just the starting point. Turns out you bond over the same beers and pizzas and like whatever it is.
Totally.
It's just, so anyway. So there's the draft stuff, there's the Discord channel, and then number 3 is the tool that I was telling you about that I put on Reddit. This is like, this is my baby. It's my bread and butter tool. It's like the main reason that anybody would sign up with me. Actually, on stream, am I able to? I probably can't like share my screen, can I? Is that a thing on StreamYard? Oh yeah, I can. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it. Do I need to do anything? I'm like learning as we go on here.
I don't think so.
Um,
No, it looks like it's just gonna let me do it here.
cool. Let's try it out.
Because it'll make sense. Can you see this? Is it? Hold on. I
I
think
can
it's
add
loading
to
it real quick.
stage. There we
Can you
go.
see this?
Sick.
All
I
right,
can see
dude.
it
So
now. Yeah, I added it on here. Cool.
this is chaos right here. So
Okay.
don't strain your eyes trying to like read all this stuff. But the
Gotcha.
basic premise for anybody who plays fantasy football, this is a resource that I put together every single week during the season. Right over on the left, this is this current week 2. So this is
Okay.
literally what just happened yesterday. Over
Awesome.
on the left is every game and all of the data for the week. So it's going to tell you who's playing who, what the over-under is. I update this all week. Like, what's the over-under? Because generally speaking, in fantasy football, you want to target higher scoring games because that's where fantasy points come from. It's going to show you the spread, who's expected to win, who's expected to lose. This is important because, like, you take the Raiders, for example, they were 8.5-point underdogs to the Bills, meaning when you're expected to get blown out of a game, you're probably not going to be able to run the ball very much. So it makes their running back, Josh Jacobs, less valuable than in a typical week. Sure enough, Josh Jacobs was terrible. Like, from a fantasy standpoint, he was terrible yesterday.
Right.
He didn't do much.
Yeah.
And it's going to show you how each defense is performing against each position. So quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. It's going to show you exactly where they rank against each position. Over on the right side, all these players that you see, 250 plus players that are placed somewhere in the map. That's either we feel really great about this player this week, we feel good about this player this week, we don't really have any strong feelings either way about this player this week. We feel gross about this player this week, and column F, it is a little play on words. No, if you put the F in front of the uck. Anyway, but this is trying to say these are the players that, like, no, don't put these players in your lineups. And then if you want to see why, all you have to do is click on their name, and there is a whole detailed analysis and breakdown as for why you should or shouldn't consider putting this player in your lineup that week. I do that for literally any player you want. Click any player you want. You're going to get a full detailed breakdown. So that, my friend, is why when I told you this takes me 30 hours a week, that's because I'm writing literally 250 plus players matchup every single week. And everything that's in here, by the way, is not opinion. This isn't me in here like, I really like Devontae Smith because, like, you don't care about my opinion. My opinion's no better than yours is. This is all data. This is all stats. This is all how the data is presenting the matchup. At the bottom, I will put a recommendations. Here is how I am treating this player. That doesn't mean you have to treat him that way, but that's how I am, just in case you find it helpful. So anyway, that's like, I'm putting this thing out every single week for my subscribers so that during the week, when they're trying to figure out, do I want to use this guy or this guy? It's making it easy for them to make those decisions. Or if there's an injury, like they just lost their running back and now they need to just grab somebody out of the free agent pool, they have nobody to grab. You go in here, you find somebody with a really good matchup, grab that player, put him in your lineup, profit, So, and then of course, if you still can't decide, you go over to Discord and you say, hey, I can't choose between these two. What do you 250 people think about this sort of thing? So anyway, man, it's fun, dude. It's become this whole like kind of team community thing where when people subscribe, we all work together and try and win these leagues and win DFS and all that stuff together. So it's very, very cool. And by the way, I do everything I can to keep it super affordable. I like to say it's $5 per month billed annually. So $59.99 for the year. It's no more than buying me one beer every month, and I'll give you access to all this stuff. That's it. Buy me a beer every month and I'll give you all this. You're on mute. It happened again.
I don't know how that happened. We did that earlier too. Anyways, what I was saying is like, that's incredible. Finish that off. But
yeah, it's fun, man. I was doing this thing while running the sales department. Like, it eventually, you can see how eventually it got to a spot where I'm like, nope, it's one or the other. I'm in on one and I'm out on the other. So
I think that's a common thing though, or it can be very common within like the work versus the passion project that's going on.
Yeah,
People just got to figure out.
Right,
yeah, the side hustle. Yeah, which I find is kind of like it's a dangerous space to be in. And I just finished reading a book on it. I don't know if it's within arm's reach here. Oh yeah. I've been referencing this a lot, but it's kind of like this. I'll pull it up now. I
Which
was
book?
gonna
Yeah.
send it. I'll send it to you afterwards, but it's 10x is easier than 2x. Have you read this?
Just got it. I didn't read it. I just got it in the mail about a week ago. One of my subscribers, actually, Eric, shout out to you, Eric. He mailed it to me. He's like, you got to read this thing. So I can't. You are the fourth person to recommend that. I'm currently in the middle of Atomic Habits. Once I'm done with that, that book is next.
That's funny. I literally wrote down in my notes after we're done this call, but then it happened. I dropped it on here. I was gonna, you know what? That person must, is Eric who got that book for you. He must have really got it, because I actually had someone that, gifted me a version of this book, and now I'm actually gifting a few of these out once in a while.
It's man. If it's the right fit, I don't know what it's about yet, but I can't wait because people love it. And dude, I'm all about like self-improvement and anything that can help me, like running a business, parenting 2 kids. Like there's so much, like anything that can help me 10x. Yeah, cool. I'm good with it.
Yeah. What I was going to say, when you read the book, I won't spoil it too much and probably won't do justice to really what it breaks down in there for you. But a lot of folks get stuck in that, like in between, and ultimately the cover there, 10x is easier than 2x. But you get stuck trying to balance both. And you try to hold on. I've been there too. You're trying to do a little bit of both. One flops off, inconsistent, whatever, you just don't stick with it. But kind of like we were talking about for the fitness side thing, it's more like the long play, right? Like 600 days of bad habits, it doesn't change in 20. Like in terms of diet and stuff, that's 2 years. And if that happened over the last couple, and then you're adjusting, that's more like me recently. Kind of just getting a little bit of cleaner eating and stuff, that side of things. But you don't notice the difference right away. You notice it 30, 40 days in. It doesn't happen overnight.
Dude, 100%, man. And it's funny how, like, it's funny how the like habit formation and all of that stuff comes into play. The 600 days or however you just said it, right?
Like it's like, I was just like, I mean, like your bad habits or 600 days doesn't get made up in 20 days, right? It's more like you got to maybe do like a couple hundred to play catch up to, if it's a diet thing, right?
But, and what's the saying? Like if you're doing 20 things, or if you're doing everything, you're doing none of them well, or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
100%.
Yeah,
I can totally relate to that.
That's super awesome. And what's I guess we lost it in here. What's coming up next week? Or I don't want to get kind of ahead of myself, or maybe what happened this last weekend in terms of specific in the fantasy world. Was there any upsets that happened or anything?
So what's coming up next week with like the business, or like being a subscriber?
Or maybe I was just thinking, I was like, maybe I'm asking that the wrong way, but maybe this last weekend is an easier reflection moment before you kind of get into, diving into the prediction or, that sort of things. What happened this last weekend though?
So typically what happens is, like, today being Monday, I usually use today to reflect on what happened yesterday, which leads into reflecting on my process for fantasy football. And there's a part of that it's part of its process focus. Like what could I have done differently to seen something going differently? The other part of it is accepting that, like, there's still a good bit of luck in this game. Like, guys get hurt, random guys come in and make these huge plays, stuff like that. But I spent today kind of reflecting on what happened in week 2. And there's 2 games tonight, so the season hasn't wrapped up yet. I can't even, that tool that I was just showing you, I can't even start on that till tomorrow because I need all the data from week 2.
From Monday night.
Which is great because today I get to focus on, again, reflecting on process. Today's Mondays and Fridays are usually days where I do something like this, a podcast, but also like I spend a lot more time on LinkedIn on those days. Tuesday. So then coming up Tuesday, fantasy football players are going to have to make waiver claims, and they're going to have to like add new players, drop players that just aren't serving them, sort of thing. So I usually, for my subscribers, I put together a quick cheat sheet of here's the players to target. More importantly, here's players that are worth spending priority or spending blind bidding dollars, it's called. Here's the players that are worth actually making that investment versus here are players that just wait till waivers end and then pick them up for free. But I put together a little cheat sheet for my subscribers to make it kind of easier on them. And then Tuesday through Thursday, dude, I'm hammering out. It's called the heat map, that tool that I was showing you. I'm hammering out
I also saw it on the website here. As
Yeah,
reference heat map. I'm like, damn. I was like,
yeah,
this is intense. This is good.
yeah. It's super intense, and I'm hammering it
Yeah.
out because I'm doing everything I can to have all 16 games, all 250 plus players done before Thursday night football kicks off. So I'm trying to cram 30 hours of writing into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is really tricky because I coach, my son's soccer team, my son's flag football team, and my daughter's soccer team all right now, which is like, I don't know how to do it all. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's what's coming up in the coming days. Is today I will reflect and work on LinkedIn. Tomorrow I will be putting together the waiver wire cheat sheet, and then Tuesday through Thursday, man, it is hammering out the heat map. It's nuts.
That is
Chaos.
awesome. No, that's wonderful. But it seems like you got it dialed in here, and I'm just thrilled to have you on here today. And
Yeah.
anyone of reference kind of here, it's LinkedIn and as well website here, basementbrewedff.com is a way to find you. The two primary, I think we addressed, you're also on Twitter, but LinkedIn and then the website are great resources, and then people can subscribe through here.
Yep.
There's a few different links. It looks like it's really great on the setup. Yeah, as far as that goes, I just want to say thanks for hopping on with me, Mikey.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And by the way, I just right now, so give me like 5 minutes to set this up, but I just right now decided that anybody who gives this a watch or a listen, I'm gonna put a coupon code in my thing. If anybody wants to come out, give it a try. Type in, I'm gonna do EH podcast or what is it? Is it A? Yeah. A. Sorry.
No.
I should know that. I'm basically in Canada.
Canada, that's okay. No. Well, we call it EH podcast too. So a podcast, sure.
A
Yeah.
podcast, yeah. So EH podcast, that's gonna be the coupon code. I'll make it all caps. Anybody who's interested in giving it a try, I'll wipe 20% right off the annual subscription. Yeah, so like Steven said, basementbrewedff.com is the website. And then I like you said, I'm on Twitter, but it's really LinkedIn that I'm spending most of my time, and it's just Mikey Henninger. You'll see me. I look a lot like I look right now. I got a football and a trophy in my name, so if that helps identify. But yeah, I'd love to, even if you're not going to become a subscriber or purchase, I'd love to, I'm always looking forward to meeting new people, especially people who enjoy football, So I appreciate it, man. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me on here.
That is great, and I will make sure that we get that out there for folks on the promo code there. And yeah, hopefully have a killer week. I'm excited to keep following the story here, Mikey. This was really exciting.
I appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Have a great day.
You too.